Do you feel like something's holding you back from reaching your full spiritual potential? What if I told you that the key to unlocking your highest self lies hidden in the darkest parts of your psyche? Welcome to our deep dive into shadow work, a transformative practice that's essential for your ascension journey. We're going to explore the strong connection between shadow work and ascension, and why facing some inner darkness is essential for spiritual growth and the ascension journey. In this video, we'll explore how confronting your shadow and then transmuting and dissolving it through emotional release and energy work can lead to personal growth, greater self-awareness, and a higher state of consciousness. Stay tuned, because by the end of this video, you'll understand how releasing your shadow self can lead to personal transformation and elevate your spiritual path like never before. Our ascension, meaning the practice of elevating our body, mind, consciousness to a higher resonant frequency, isn't just something that is going to happen because we declare it. We have to put in the work. If you've never heard the term personal resonant frequency, we'll start with a quick and very simple physics lesson. Everything is made of energy, and the specific way to how that energy vibrates gives rise to its structure and form. And we humans are no different. Every part of our body, every thought, every intention has its own energy signature, which is a frequency, meaning ultimately how fast and how tall that waveform is vibrating. So we are a culmination of all of these various vibrations coming together as our personal human expression. That culmination is our personal resonant frequency. If we spend more time having fearful thoughts, we vibrate at a lower frequency. If we were able to be in forgiveness and compassion to others and share love, we hold a higher resonant frequency. Of course, our frequency goes up and down all the time depending upon what we are engaged in during different times of the day and night, but mostly it remains around the same. But with the practice of ascension, we raise that frequency, usually little by little, and end up in a much higher energy state, which helps us attract more of the positive experience that we strive for in a balanced, conscious life. So delving into our subconscious, which rules over 95% of what we say and do every moment of every day, is critical and crucial for our ascension. We will never be able to reach much higher frequencies of love, light, and expansion if we're weighed down by unresolved fears, hidden traumas, and suppressed emotions. It is very possible and more than likely the key to your next level of spiritual growth and ultimate ascension lies in the very shadows you've been avoiding. So, our shadows are the unseen and unresolved issues held in our subconscious that are holding us back. And many are things we can't quite seem to put our finger on. Like there's an invisible barrier between you and your true potential, or something stopping your manifestations, or there's a self-sabotage mechanism that shows up at the most inappropriate times, of course, when we least want or expect it. Shadow work is the practice of exploring these hidden aspects of ourselves, the parts that we can't clearly see or intentionally keep in the dark because they're difficult to look at. By shining light on these shadows and energetically removing them, we dissolve the barriers that keep us stuck in these lower vibrational energy loops. This process is crucial for ascension because once our shadows are faced, they can no longer hold us hostage. And finally, we are allowed the ability to raise our frequency higher than that of our subconscious traps, and we heal and grow and transform on a multidimensional level. The idea of the shadow self was first popularized by psychiatrist Carl Jung. He said, and this is a quote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The latter procedure, however, is disagreeable and therefore not popular." Jung states that the shadow is the unconscious part of our character or personality that does not align with our ideal version of what we're aiming for, which he called the ego ideal. So this contrast between the ego ideal, what we want to present ourselves to the world as, and our shadows causes us to resist and reject the shadow. But if we don't ever resolve these issues, they run our shows, so to speak. We are a prisoner to these subconscious habits. Also, it is through the rejection of the parts of ourselves that we dislike that we become a vibrational match to call in more of them. And inevitably, most of us will unconsciously project our shadows onto others as well. So, as we said a bit earlier, humans operate up to 95% out of our subconscious. That means, think about this, only 5% of our decisions are coming out of our active conscious mind. With shadow work, we can help change that percentage. In our subconscious, we find our autonomic nervous system, and that's amazing. We want our heart to keep beating, and we want our veins to keep pumping, and all of those things that are bodily functions like breathing that we don't have to think about. But also in there, we find our memories, our core belief systems, and all of our operating systems, mechanisms, habits, patterns, and our overall mindset. Most of our decisions, behaviors, actions, and emotions happen automatically, driven from this subconscious. And they appear as impulses, desires, the avoidance of pain and discomfort, and the search for instant gratification. And then the shadow is reinforced through our repressed desires, our repressed ideas, instincts, our weaknesses and shortcomings. These shadows are sometimes experienced as the rejected parts of ourselves, as well as our fear responses and coping mechanisms to traumas and negative things that happen to us as a young child, all the way through to adulthood, or in our past lives, which we'll leave that for another video. They come into view most often when the subconscious seems to sabotage many of the things that we try to consciously create, or when our emotions uncontrollably take over in response to a situation. Now, we often think about the shadow with a negative connotation, saying, oh, the shadow contains all these elements that we don't want to show other people, so we hide them. We're giving the shadow power that way, by letting it be and reinforcing it, but ignoring it. But we also believe that the shadow includes the things that are simply not easy for us to see. They're a bit more hidden because they come from the subconscious, from coping mechanisms that we took on as a child that have been working on our behalf from behind the scenes for most of our lives. These are actions and beliefs that were initially created to help us survive a tough time that happened at some point in our lives, or from many misunderstandings that happen between people. Most often they happen as a response to a negative situation, but they're no longer needed in our lives now. But we're so ingrained in these habits. They represent as these tough little energy knots in our energy field, so we can't help but repeat them. They have been running us the same way for years and decades, and that tight place of energy just kept getting reinforced over and over again. It's this reason why we keep calling the same situations into our lives repeatedly, even if at first they look completely different. For example, why do we keep attracting the same toxic relationship, even though our partners are different each time? Or maybe it's a toxic relationship with money that we need to resolve. Or maybe we are triggered by other people's words or actions that they swear were never meant in the same manner to which we have interpreted them and reacted to them. Understanding the shadow and then diving into the subconscious through shadow work can help release our negative patterns and raise our frequency. Shadow work involves bringing our unconscious mind into our conscious view, and it's an invaluable tool for awakening and personal growth, as well as releasing our negative patterns that we can see are running our lives over and over and over again. So, check the video notes to find our generic shadow work session that you can use to help release any shadow that happens to be triggering you, as well as some other shadow work sessions made specifically for the most common shadows that trip up and block our manifestation and law of attraction efforts. Keep checking back because we'll be adding these to our video library regularly. Each of these sessions is designed to work on the energetic level because every single one of us is interacting with energies and frequencies all day long. And energy and frequency is how we manifest our lives through the law of mirrors, or also called the law of attraction. Our energetic expression is critical for living a harmonious, balanced life, especially when we're actively pursuing the life of our dreams. Most shadow work facilitators address the process of shadow work through the approach of questioning and self-exploration. They share that once you can see the shadow and how it operates in your life, it will integrate and resolve itself. This means someone would ask themselves questions for critical examination, then spend time looking at their old stories and beliefs, and the person will integrate his or her self-proclaimed darkness, now found shadow, and choose new stories and new habits to replace it. This is a lot of repetitive work, and you'll have to catch yourself often as you see your shadow come up with many new conscious choices to remember to break your old habits. And these new habits that you need to take on will stack up if you are continuously doing the self-examination, which is critical to ascension, because we all have many different kinds of shadows and traumas, and probably more than a few things in our childhood that need to be addressed and healed. This process of managing your shadow will not raise your frequency instantly either. It's a slower, longer process with many ups and downs. At Tao of Miracles, we do shadow work a bit differently than most others, which is from an energy work experience. And so it helps escalate our ascension process much quicker. With emotional energy release and healing energy work, we can help dissolve and eventually remove shadows. And once they're gone, life begins to change, sometimes instantly. We will use facets of energy work to heal and neutralize and hopefully obliterate our shadows instead. Since everything is energy, frequency, and vibration, we will not manage our shadows, but remove the energetic imprint that appears like a knot of energies in our human auric biofield that keeps attracting more of the same, of course, like we said, because of the law of mirrors. These knots of energy are keeping new, free and flowing energy, feelings, and ideas from entering, and source consciousness cannot flow freely throughout our body. So we can't be new in every moment and address problems directly and new every time we are stuck to these energy knots. Now, Ascension involves expanding our consciousness, raising our personal energetic frequency, and moving towards higher levels of awareness and beingness. The journey of ascension can be taken from so many different perspectives, including spiritual, psychological, and even there are scientific viewpoints about it. But all of these are still different ways with the same outcome. They all initiate an energetic transformation in frequency. When you raise your standing wave energy to a higher active or frequency by doing the self-work, you are in the process of ascension. So why wouldn't you go the most direct route? Made in the likeness of Source, humans, we too are scalar beings and have that option available to us to work directly with energy, but we have been programmed to think linearly. Energy work is scalar, and the more that we understand we can work on that level and we see instantaneous results, the more we're going to want to do it. And it removes us from this linear human mindset that we have been programmed to since our birth. So the energetic release of our emotions in shadow work will help us purge the old energy systems, probably some of our old habits and beliefs, and it will break up and dissipate the knots of energy that we've accumulated from a lifetime of repetition of bad habits and stuck energies and emotions in the body. It's also like a statement to your higher self that you are done with these particular habits that no longer serve you. And once we make peace with the situation that triggered us in the first place, we will soon fill the spaces with pure light, higher vibrational energy that will clear and purge any remnants. With this process, you will never have to struggle with integrating and changing habits and finding acceptance around a shadow and working constantly to change things through your mind. Don't get me wrong, it can be done. It's just harder and often a much longer and more complex process. With this process of energy entrainment and emotional release facilitation, it's really common that once the shadow is seen, removed, healed with energy, it doesn't return. For the bigger things that are running our lives, we may have to repeat the process for a few times or from a few different perspectives, but eventually the shadow will fade and the energy will rise. Now, let's talk about the energetics of this just a little more. Because times of sorrow and pain and frustration have the potential to become the moments of greatest transformation in our lives, we always begin our sessions with our feelings. We go deep into the roots of our frustration and pain and whatever has triggered us, and we allow it to build up before we move back in time to when it first appeared in our lives and experience it without blame, without self-pity, or without the multitude of escape mechanisms we might have initiated that have become our habits over time. Now, this is the toughest part for many, many people, so that's why we're talking about it. To do this effectively, we have to be willing to become vulnerable enough to experience and sit with our pain, but be willing and ready to let it go and let it out with our feelings, with our emotions, and we will transmute what has in the past been some of our hardest moments. So you can't just go through a shadow work session and think about it. You really have to experience it. It is an energetic release and experience. And like we said, that is some of the hardest things for people who have been shut down in their lives and don't want to feel pain or take drugs or other substances to manage their pain. Feeling that pain is one of the hardest things. Now, you don't have to put a label on it. You don't have to understand what it is. You just have to feel it in your body and know that it's momentary and temporary, and it will release. At the end of this process, you're going to feel so much better. So our pain, our fears, our sorrows, our escape mechanisms show us where we are holding energy, and it's keeping us, these things are keeping us from the natural flow of the universe. So that's why we need to go into it. They are our weakest points energetically. But I promise, it feels so good on the other side of the release and the inflow of new energy. It's worth it to take the leap forward doing this kind of energetic shadow work. And once you address just one of your shadows, it's probably going to feel so good and you'll feel so energetically uplifted. You're probably going to want to keep going to do more. And it's like peeling the layers of an onion. You might start small, and it's our biggest, core, deepest challenges that are usually the last things to address. The universe is gentle with us and takes us down the process, building momentum as it needs to. And you don't have to sit and identify anything. Whatever is triggering you, that is the next thing that you get to work on. So shadow work releases one by one all of the lower frequencies we hold in our subconscious, and they're often associated with fear and anger and other negative emotions. And then this process brings in the higher frequencies that are linked to forgiveness, love, joy, gratitude, and ultimately enlightenment. So it's imperative we are willing to dive into our dark places and understand that first, it's okay to have dark places. We all do. No one is perfect. It is just a human experience. And second, there really are some pretty simple methods to release our shadows that will also propel us further on the ascension path, simply by removing the lower vibrational energies stored in our subconscious associated with them. Ascension is all about shifting our energies to higher frequencies, allowing for greater harmony, peace, and alignment with the universe, awakening to the multidimensional aspects of ourselves, and we learn to navigate and interact with our fully connected higher realms. We're only going to get to these higher realms by releasing and transmuting the lower vibrations keeping us trapped. So it's critical to go much higher in our ascension. So healing our past traumas, resolving our inner conflicts, and integrating our shadow aspects through the self are critical for ascension. It will lead us to wholeness and inner harmony. So how do you start shadow work? Well, we said it earlier, whatever it is that is triggering you, if you can hang on to that feeling and go into a quiet space to start a shadow work session, do it. That is the best time to do it. If you don't have the time at the moment, just remember that feeling. Remember in your body is that gut, cellular, or emotional feeling that you will recreate in the beginning of a session that will bring you into the right frequency for that release process. If you are having a trouble pulling up those emotions, or if you've been programmed by family members or parents as a young child going, you're not allowed to have emotions, you should not feel that way, then getting in touch with your emotions is going to be harder. So you need to just do the process of self-reflection. Where am I not in alignment? Where am I self-sabotaging? Taking a few minutes every day or at the end of the day just to look back at your day is a great place to start. Journaling is another one. If you just do morning pages or evening journaling about your day, it will come up. Those are the things you should address in a shadow work session. Now, don't forget, if you are on an ascension path, you are probably working with meditation and mindfulness. These can support your shadow work because they also show us mindfulness will show us where we're not in alignment. And meditation will help bring in the higher energies and anchor them in regularly once we release that shadow. So we're not thinking about changing our everyday habits, but we will bring in higher frequencies of energy in our meditations. It will happen naturally once you release the lower energies of shadow work, but you can also intentionally raise the frequency in your meditation as you're meditating to bring in those higher healing energies. So, shadow work does not take the place of working with a licensed mental health counselor. So if you are having very negative thoughts of self-harm, please go seek professional help. And other than that, we encourage you to start your shadow work journey. Don't forget, it is a gradual process, but there are long-term benefits that will help you feel better and elevate your ascension process a lot quicker. You have huge potential as a fractal of source consciousness, which is what you are. And we will work with those energies of source deeper and deeper and deeper in multitude of different ways on this channel. Shadow work is a critical integrative step. Please check out our shadow work videos. There will be new videos up regularly, once a week or every 2 weeks, addressing different types of shadows. A lot having to do around manifestation and creating this beautiful, highly conscious, ascended life. We also have a generic shadow work video that you can work on any trigger, anything that's triggering you, you can work on it with this generic shadow work session. And come back regularly because we're going to have all sorts of ways to hack our meditation, to bring in higher energy states, to develop our claircognizance and clairsentience, working with the astral and the akashic to bring in information and have more things available to us that way. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments in the videos with other videos you might want to see or questions about the process, and we'll try and work on videos for the majority of those questions. Remember, the journey of ascension is as much about transmuting your shadows to raise your frequency as it is about directly seeking the light, and they are intimately connected through the energies in our subconscious. So I hope you find our shadow work sessions very helpful. Your higher self awaits. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Milena for Tao of Miracles.